He trusted her with everything, his heart, his money, even his future. But months later, when doctors told him he was HIV positive, he realized the truth: someone had infected him on purpose. And the woman he loved might have been planning it all along. But why? And what did he do that pushed her to such a deadly revenge? Ethan Cole had always been the kind of man who lived in quiet precision. At 32, his life was measured in routines and small comforts: morning runs along the riverbank, Saturday coffee at the same cafe, the occasional weekend hike to escape the city's hum. He was careful in everything: work, finances, relationships, and that carefulness made him dependable, reliable, someone friends called a rock in times of chaos. Yet beneath that exterior of composure lay a man who craved connection, a man who wanted more than the humdrum predictability of life. He wanted warmth, intimacy, and love that made the ordinary extraordinary. Alina Reyes, 27, had entered his world like a burst of sunlight. At first glance, she seemed delicate, almost ethereal, a woman whose laughter could lighten the heaviest room, whose smile invited trust and affection. But there was a complexity to her that wasn't immediately visible. She carried the weight of a past life, of disappointments and scars she rarely spoke of, hidden behind charm and brightness. She had come to Canada on her own, determined to build a life different from the one she left behind, but that independence was tinged with guardedness. There were shadows in her eyes, brief moments of fear or sadness that Ethan had assumed were homesickness, stress, or the natural weight of a new beginning. Her charm was intoxicating. She moved with confidence yet vulnerability, a combination that made her presence magnetic. She had a way of making Ethan feel seen, understood, wanted. Yet just beneath the surface, there were fissures, moments of uncharacteristic anger, bursts of silence that seemed disproportionate to the situation, an avoidance of certain questions. Ethan saw these as quirks, as the remnants of a life he wasn't part of, never suspecting they were markers of something far more deliberate. Friends and acquaintances played roles in the tapestry of their lives, each influencing the relationship in ways Ethan couldn't yet comprehend. Mira Delgado, Alina's closest friend in Canada, had always observed Ethan with cautious eyes. Mira was perceptive, sharp, and protective, and though she never directly voiced her doubts about Alina, her subtle warnings lingered in Ethan's subconscious, dismissed as overprotectiveness. Then there was Leo Santillon, a co-worker of Alina's, whose easy charm and effortless smile had always unsettled Ethan, though he could never explain why. Alina's brief interactions with Leo, furtive glances, hurried texts, careful wording, made no sense at the time. Now, looking back, they were pieces of a puzzle that was slowly revealing a darker picture. Within their relationship, the dynamics were deceptively simple. Ethan gave, trusted, and loved without restraint. Alina received, manipulated, and withheld in ways that were imperceptible to someone as devoted as him. She would hold him close on cold nights, whispering soft reassurances, only to later vanish for hours without explanation. Her laughter, once comforting, now seemed calculated, almost rehearsed. Her apologies, tender and convincing, had kept him tethered to a version of her that may never have truly existed. There were fleeting remarks she made in casual conversation that now echoed ominously in Ethan's mind, statements about betrayal, cryptic hints about consequences for those who caused pain, references to lessons that must be learned through suffering. At the time, they had sounded like musings, harmless or poetic. Now, in the harsh light of truth, they took on a chilling significance. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about the early signs he had ignored, the subtle cracks in Alina's demeanor, the moments that didn't add up until now. He replayed the first time she disappeared for hours without explanation, how she had returned with a fragile smile, pretending nothing had happened. He remembered the nights she clutched at him as if afraid he might leave, the quiet tremor in her voice when certain topics came up, and the fleeting darkness in her eyes that he had convinced himself was just sadness. He remembered laughing with her at the waterfront, walking side by side as the sun dipped behind the city skyline. He recalled how her hand fit perfectly in his, how her laugh could make a gray day feel bright. It was all so vivid, so real, and yet, each memory now carried a new, terrible weight. The warmth he felt in those moments was inseparable from the danger that had been lurking beneath the surface. The days that followed felt like Ethan was moving through a fog, each moment heavy and surreal. He went to work, but the office lights felt too bright, the chatter too loud, the routine meaningless. Everywhere he looked, reminders of Alina, her favorite coffee mug left on the counter, the scarf she had carelessly draped over the chair, felt like ghostly echoes of a life that had turned hostile overnight. He began to replay every interaction with her, searching for clues he had ignored. There were the late nights she spent on her phone, the messages he never saw, the fleeting anger she expressed over trivial things. There were the vague excuses for disappearing, the sudden coldness that melted as quickly as it came. And most haunting of all were the moments of tenderness, the ones that had made him feel loved and safe, which now seemed like tools of manipulation, carefully placed to keep him unaware, to keep him trusting, to keep him vulnerable. Then came the hospital visit that would push everything over the edge. Doctors, concerned about his health, had ordered further testing. The results were incontrovertible. He had been infected intentionally. It was no accident, no misstep, someone had deliberately transmitted the virus to him. The thought was unbearable. And with it came the terrifying realization that the person responsible was the one he had opened his heart to, the woman he had trusted with everything. The morning had begun like any other, but the city felt different that day, heavier somehow, as if it knew the storm that was about to break. Ethan woke early, his body stiff, the remnants of restless sleep clinging to him. Alina was already awake, moving around the apartment with her usual quiet efficiency, pouring coffee, humming softly, her presence at once comforting and disquieting. But today, something in her gaze unsettled him. A sharpness there that hadn't been there before, fleeting, almost imperceptible, yet enough to prick at his subconscious. They exchanged the usual pleasantries, but each word felt loaded. The laughter, the smiles, they were brittle, rehearsed, lacking the effortless warmth of earlier days. Ethan tried to ignore it, chalking it up to fatigue or nerves, but a subtle knot of unease had already begun to form in his chest. The first true sign of danger came during lunch. They had gone to a small bistro near the river, a place they had visited countless times before. Alina's laughter seemed forced, her eyes darting nervously to people passing by. When a waiter approached, she stiffened, her movements meticulous, almost mechanical. Ethan noticed the slight tremor in her hands as she picked up her glass, the way her gaze lingered on his face, not with warmth, but with calculation. A chill ran down his spine, but he suppressed it. Love had taught him to trust, and he clung to that belief desperately. By nightfall, Ethan was exhausted, mentally frayed, but unable to sleep. He sat alone on the couch, watching Alina move through the apartment as if he were invisible. Something was coming, something he couldn't yet name, but the air felt charged, electric with impending disaster. And deep inside, beneath fear, confusion, and love, Ethan realized with dawning horror that the life he had known, everything he had trusted, was about to be ripped apart. The apartment was silent when Ethan returned the next morning, but the stillness felt wrong, unnatural, oppressive. The air was thick, heavy, as if it were holding its breath. Then he saw it, her phone, carelessly left on the counter, unlocked. A message preview glared at him, "It's done. He won't see it coming. He'll learn soon enough." The words were simple, clinical, but the meaning slammed into him with the force of a falling wall. His chest tightened, a scream clawing at his throat. Every small inconsistency, every unexplained disappearance, every fleeting look of anger or sorrow, everything suddenly made sense. He stumbled backward, eyes darting around the apartment. Every shadow seemed alive, every corner hiding secrets he hadn't noticed. Memories of tenderness twisted into memories of manipulation, the gentle touches, the whispered reassurances, the smiles that masked something darker. They were no longer signs of love, but tools of deception. The investigation began in earnest. Detectives moved through the apartment with deliberate caution, examining every surface, every object, every digital footprint. Neighbors, friends, and co-workers were interviewed, painting a conflicting picture: polite, friendly, harmless. Yet behind closed doors, the reality was far darker. Digital evidence became central. Text messages, emails, and deleted conversations hinted at hidden connections, odd timing, and moments that, when strung together, revealed a chilling narrative of premeditation. Each message, seemingly mundane on its own, became a piece of a larger puzzle. Red herrings led investigators down false paths, deepening suspense while the true pattern slowly emerged. Then, the twist. Hidden in encrypted messages between Alina and an unknown contact was the truth: every act of care, every tender word, every whispered reassurance had been part of a strategy. The motive was vengeance, rooted in past betrayal, meticulously executed. Her confession confirmed it: premeditated, deliberate, weaponized love. Every moment had been calculated, orchestrated to inflict both physical and emotional harm. Alina was arrested. Evidence piled high: messages, receipts, timestamps, and witness statements all corroborated the premeditation. Court proceedings revealed the full scale of her plan. Ethan, devastated, finally had the truth laid bare. Justice had been served, but the emotional scars remained. Family and friends rallied around Ethan, offering support and guidance. Public outrage was intense, social media buzzing with disbelief at the premeditated manipulation and betrayal. Yet amidst the chaos, Ethan began the slow journey toward healing, reclaiming agency over his life, and rebuilding trust in a world that had once felt safe. He sat quietly in the fading light of the apartment he once shared with Alina, reflecting on the months of turmoil, betrayal, and revelation. The pain still lingered, but beneath it, a fragile seed of understanding had begun to grow. He had survived a nightmare few could imagine, a betrayal that weaponized trust, love, and intimacy. His story is a cautionary tale: trust is precious and fragile, love can be exploited, and vigilance is necessary. Yet even in the darkest experiences, the human spirit can endure. Ethan's ordeal proves that survival, justice, and personal growth remain possible. The darkness he endured did not define him, it refined him. And as he looked toward the future, he understood that while he could not undo the past, he could shape the path ahead, guided by the clarity born from experience, the wisdom earned through suffering, and the enduring belief that life, even after betrayal, could still hold hope. His story leaves a lasting question for all who hear it: in a world where trust can be weaponized, how will you protect your heart while still embracing the possibility of love?